Hello everyone, it's Andrea. Today I'm going to show you how to sew this Padfolio organizer, which has a space for your iPad, postcard sized items, business cards, a pen slip, and in an 8.5 by 11-inch notebook. The organizer closes with a snap flap closure and is perfect for travel. For this project, you are going to need 1.5 yards of cotton quilt fabric, quilt batting, pellon heavyweight interfacing, a snap set, hook and loop tape, thread, seam ripper, small hammer, and a sewing machine. The first step is to cut out all of your pattern pieces, which are outlined here. I like to take my 1.5 yard continuous cut of fabric, open that up, and fold it in half again to create a 4-piece layer of fabric with the selvage running across the top edge. This is the way that I've found to use the fabric most efficiently. And I'm going to go through here how I cut that fabric to minimize waste. First, I true up the end of the fabric, and then I'm going to make a 13.5-inch cut. This piece here will become the 2 body panels, which are then going to be cut to 21 inches to create 2 panels which measure 13.5 inches high by 21 inches wide. The next thing that I'm going to cut out are the pockets which span the front of the organizer. And the first cut that you're going to make at this point is 18 inches wide. Then you're going to open that panel up and flip it so the selvage is on the left-hand side, and you're going to cut that 21 inches wide to create 2 pocket panels which measure 18 inches by 21 inches. Then we have one smaller pocket panel which is designed to hold an iPad or similar size device, and for that you're going to make an 11-inch cut. This creates 2 panels which you're going to trim up to 20 inches by 11 inches. Set one panel aside, and that'll be the iPad pocket. The second panel is going to be cut into 2 smaller pieces to create the flap closures. The first cut on the flap is 8 inches. And this is the flap that covers the iPad pocket, and then we need a 5-inch cut for the flap that closes the Padfolio. The remaining fabric is remnant. You can fold that up and save it for another project. Now we're going to cut the batting. You will need 1 piece of batting that measures 13.5 inches by 21 inches, and that's going to line one of the body panels. Then you're also going to need 2 smaller cuts of batting to line the flap closure and the flap closure for the pocket. I like to position the body panel right on top of the batting and then just use the rotary cutter to go around the edge of the fabric very carefully, and that gives me a piece of batting which fits my fabric perfectly. Now you're going to take the larger flap closure and the smaller flap closure, and you're going to fold those in half, right sides together, and cut a piece of batting that fits exactly underneath of that. So your pieces will now measure 5 inches by 8 inches and 5 inches by 5 inches. Now it's time to press our pre-cut pattern pieces, and you're going to follow the pressing guide. You can pause the video. I'm going to cover just a few basics here, but this video footage does not show the actual pressing. The body panels are pressed flat, as well as the pocket flaps closures. Then you're going to fold the longer pockets in half and press those along the seam, and the shorter pocket you're going to fold a lip over approximately 1 inch, press that, and then fold it in half again. And that is all outlined in the pressing guide. So please reference that for how to press the pattern pieces. Now once you have everything pressed, I'm just taking just a second here to cut off a 4-inch piece of hook and loop tape, which this is essentially is velcro sew-in hook and loop tape. You don't want the kind with the sticky back for this project, just sew-in is fine. I'm just going to get that trimmed up and set it aside. Now we're going to prepare the flap closures. I like to angle the corners, so I just fold that in half, and along the folded edge, which is the bottom of the flap, I'm just going to angle that from the side to the base. This is totally optional, but it adds a little bit of dimension. I'm going to do the same thing with the flap closure. I'm going to just trim off a little bit of the corner to create a nice angle. Now we're going to stitch down the side, across the angled bottom, and up the other side, leaving the top of that flap open so that it can be flipped right side out, pressed, and top stitched. I'm poking the corners of that out with my finger. I'm going to give it a good press. And top stitch all along the edge. I'm going to repeat the same thing with the larger flap. And with this one, you're going to turn the top edge inward approximately 1 inch so you have a nice finished flap. And you're going to top stitch all the way around. trim off any excess threads. Then we're going to attach one piece of the hook and loop tape to the flap, stitching across the top and the base of that tape. We're going to set our flaps aside. We're going to prepare our pocket panels. This is a smaller pocket for the iPad. I've pressed that top edge under 1 inch and folded it in half, and I'm going to stitch across the top edge. Trim up any extra threads there, and then I'll fold that in half just to mark the center point. And I'm going to position the remaining piece of velcro on top of that and stitch across the top and the base. Just trimming up the thread ends. Now we have our 2 longer pockets which have a folded edge across the top. Going to stitch across the top of both of those. Just top stitching here. Going to set aside the 2 longer pocket panels. And now I'm just working with the body panel, which has the batting underneath. I want to take my iPad pocket, which is the one with the hook and loop tape attached, and position that on top of the body panel in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to align the base and the sides. The cut edges of the pocket are going to be to the left. I'm going to stitch down the folded edge and secure that pocket in place. Then we're going to take the flap and align that so that the 2 pieces of hook and loop tape line up and are secure. Fold over that edge, pin that flap in place, and stitch just the flap in place. trimming up my long threads. And securing the flap. Now we're looking for our two long pocket panels, which we're going to layer one on top of the other, approximately 1 inch in between the two top folds, with the sides nice and even. There'll be a little overhang on the base, that's fine. We're going to trim that up later. We're going to secure these two panels together, and then we're going to divide the panel in half with a finger crease, and we're going to then quadrant off the right hand side of the pocket, the left hand side of the pocket, for a pen slip, a business card slip, and then the larger postcard size slip pocket. And I'm just marking that with pins, and then I'm going to stitch these pockets in place. And I'm going to stitch a horizontal line to shorten that business card pocket so that the business cards fit just perfectly inside that pocket. That's going to be approximately 4 inches down from the top fold of that pocket. Now we have our pocket panels prepared. We'll just trim up those extra threads. And then we're going to be positioning this panel atop of the body panel, which now has the iPad pocket attached to it. We're going to be aligning the sides, and then remember you have a little bit of overhang on your pocket, so you're going to want to align the base of the body panel with the shortest pocket panel, which is the interior pocket panel. And there'll be some overhang, which is going to get all trimmed up in the end. So now we just have to secure this pocket panel to this body panel. We're doing that by stitching right down the center, trimming up the extra thread. And now we need to install the snap on our flap closure. I center the snap on that closure. We're going to be installing the prong and the female portion of the snap. I use a small hammer. Just give it a whack. You should follow the manufacturer's instructions for your brand of snap. Then I take the male piece and fit that inside, and the last prong that fits inside of that will be installed as we get closer to finishing this project up. So we're going to position the flap with the pretty part of the snap facing up, and you're going to center that on the right hand side along the right hand edge with just a little bit of the raw edge overhanging. Take the remaining body panel and place that right side down atop of your body panel with all of the pockets. Align the top corners first because you have the overhang at the base, which will be trimmed off. Pin that in place so you essentially have a big sandwich with your body panel with the pockets and then your top piece of bread face down on that sandwich. We're going to stitch down both sides and across the base. Remove the pins and trim up the excess fabric, including all of the overhang at the base. You're going to want to take care not to cut through your stitch line. but we need to reduce that bulk so that we can flip this right side out. Now we're going to turn the organizer right side out, watching for any pins on the inside and removing those as we go. Going to use the same process as we did with the flaps and use our fingers to poke out the corners. Smooth that out nice. We're going to get the iron heated up and give that a really good press. Checking for any holes, any missed stitches. This is the perfect time to fix that if you should happen to find it. It's important to really give it a good look over and make sure that you have good quality product. Now we need to install the remaining prong on the snap, and we're going to determine where we want that position based upon the placement of the snap on the flap before we close up this organizer and top stitch. So I just actually poke the prongs in and get an idea where I want that, and I can see the little poke holes, so I go from the inside and position those prongs up, and then I just do a little test fit and make sure that I'm happy with that positioning, because once this snap is installed you can't remove that very easily. So I've got that where I want it. I'm holding it with my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to give that snap a good whack and secure that in place. Check and make sure that's functional. It looks good. Now we're ready to press the organizer. Now when we're pressing, we're going to be turning that top unfinished edge inward evenly all the way around, approximately 1 inch. And just go slow when you do this. Measure if you need to, but you want to have a nice even top press line. In the meantime, I'm going to cut out a heavyweight piece of pellon interfacing, which I'm going to slip in between the two layers of the pad folio so that it's tucked nice and neat inside. And this heavyweight pellon is going to offer a lot of body to the planner and more stability. I'm cutting this piece to fit exactly inside, which at this point is approximately 11 inches high, between 11 and 12 inches high. You measure yours after you get the top pressed, by 20 inches wide, but you're going to need to measure yours because a lot of this is going to depend upon your seam allowance. As a guideline, I'd go with 11 by 20. I get that piece of pellon ready, and I'm going to fit that inside of the planner. Right now I'm just pressing that flat. Smoothing everything out, getting those seams nice and aligned. I'm going to take that top edge and turn it inward approximately 1 inch and press that nice and flat. Just take your time and go from one edge to the other. Now I'm just double checking those measurements for the pellon, and you can see how I've pressed that top edge inward, nice and neat. And I'm just going to insert that pellon in there, tucking the corners in and getting everything nice and tidy. I'm going to fit that pellon under that exterior lip so it stays in place and is captured in the top stitching, which I'll complete next. Just tuck, 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 and then we're going to pin that all across the top. I'm taking care to line up the exterior and the interior top edges. Once I get that all pinned in place, I'm going to stitch all the way around the perimeter of the organizer. That'll close up the top and just add some detail and continuity by putting a nice stitched border around the edge of the planner. And then the project is complete. It's a fun, easy, quick sew. You can modify those pockets to suit your needs. It's a really very functional piece. Makes a great gift. And it's just a nice way to beautify your workspace. Whenever I'm putting the finishing details on a piece like this, I like to go nice and slow, keep the stitching straight. I remove the pins as I go. And there we have it. Checking everything out, it looks really good. Good job. That was a fun project. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love it if you'd post photos of your finished projects on the Watermelon Wishes Facebook page or tag us on Instagram at Watermelon Wishes. Thank you.